All right, well, I actually get to speak to you next, but thankfully I followed Dr. Cole, so he did all the heavy lifting for me. He talked about all the data, all the research, so I want to drive home points for you, and the reason why I want to drive them home is to empower you and make you feel like you're ready to fight this battle, ready to talk to your friends and family, ready to know the facts and be confident in what you're sharing with them. The first point, so today, and I don't have any slides, today I'm going to talk to you about COVID-19 vaccines in children predominantly. And I want to talk to you about the lack of ability to trust what has happened, and I'm going to line it out for you. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So, and why maybe I'm up here. I mean, all these other great big doctors, big names. So I am a family medicine physician, and I've been practicing in Mid, Missouri for the last 11 years. I was chief of staff of my hospital for 6 years until recently. The COVID pandemic changed my life, really. I feel thankful for what it brought to me, to the education it has given me. I've never really been opposed to natural remedies, supplements, vitamins, but I never focused on them. And in the spring of last year, I realized how impactful they were for our health and our nutrition and our ability to fight infection. And it was such an exciting time for me. I was constantly researching, constantly trying to figure out what I was going to do to protect my patients. And I had great success, amazing success. As of July of this year, all of my patients were alive. I had not had one death from COVID, and I had treated hundreds, probably 1,500 to 2,000 if you calculate in the nurse practitioners that I was collaborating with and the physician assistant. We hadn't had one death from COVID. We were utilizing all of the outpatient treatment protocols, vitamins, supplements, early treatment, and it works. And I started voicing my concerns about the vaccine, and then I was asked to step down as chief of staff. And then in August, I was told I had to take the vaccine or do the testing, and I denied that, declined that, and then I was terminated. And so, and around all this time is when I was able to join in on this wonderful group. And the fact that I'm part of this group and the fact that I get to collaborate with these physicians is amazing, and I feel honored and blessed to do that. The first point that I want to talk to you about is a question, and you guys are going to know the answer to this question. And I'm asking it because most people don't know the answer, but I know this audience does. So, and it's been discussed, is there any currently FDA-approved COVID vaccine product in the U.S.? No. So, now you officially are more knowledgeable and more educated than many of the physicians and pharmacists, governmental agencies that are promoting lies to us. So the education that you need is found here today, and it's also, as Dr. Cole mentioned, at thehighwire.com is one of the main locations that I feel like is a good collaboration of data. So if you don't know that program, I would recommend it, highly recommend it. It comes out every Thursday. It's about a 2 to 3 hour program, and it's full of all the current data regarding not just vaccines, but truth in general. What is the FDA approved product that's available? Commodity, and as Dr. Cole would say, commie RNA. Yeah. So it's a good one, isn't it? Okay, so as far as research and the amount of investigational effort that was put into the vaccines in children, the studies only involved researching this in the children for 2.5 months in one group and 2.5 weeks in another. It's astounding. So I truly believe it was intentionally kept short, and in addition, Pfizer likely intentionally wiped out the control group as soon as they could. So then they can't compare, right? This was all done with the blessing of the FDA and the CDC. It should blow everybody's mind. You can't believe that that's what's happening. It's hard to understand how they could have such little regard for our children. One of the things that I want to say is, who is responsible for the children? Good job. That's it. Who can you trust? That's right. It's the parents. It's us. So you cannot trust the media. You cannot trust the FDA. You can't trust. So HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, is over the CDC, the FDA, NIH. You can't trust any of them. In 1986, there was an act that came out that was passed by Congress. It was called the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And if you guys haven't looked into that, you should. I feel like that is how, one of the major reasons why we got to this point is so I'm going to give you a little history. In the 70s, early 80s, there were so many vaccine injury suits that were occurring that the pharmaceutical companies went to Congress and said, we need protection. We need liability protection. And if you don't give it to us, and they blackballed Congress, if you don't give it to us, we're just not going to make vaccines anymore. Yeah, exactly. So Congress said, okay, we'll pass this act. And there was 3 main provisions in that act. And number one of the main provisions was basically, okay, Congress is going to take on the responsibility of making vaccines safer. That was number 1. And then number 2, they're going to create a task force that was going to be constantly working on making vaccines safer. And as far as we know, that disbanded in 1996. And then number 3, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services was supposed to report to Congress every 2 years what has happened to create vaccine safety and make it better. Yeah, so what happened? Did that ever happen? Where does the responsibility lie at this point? Well, it's first of all still currently on Congress's shoulders. However, they're not doing their job. So, in addition, there was a potential ability after that act for tort litigation to still occur through state and federal courts. And then the 2011 Supreme Court case said, okay, you really can't do that either. Something surprising that was in that 2011 case was that Justice Scalia said, really, the only time where liability does occur is in the case of experimental products. So you would think, okay, well, maybe that is true, but what happened in 2020? So the 2020 PrEP Act took out even experimental products. So that's how we got here. Astonishingly, the children that were in the trial for the vaccine were not screened for asymptomatic myocarditis. So what is the main thing that you think about for adverse events with regard to the vaccine? Myocarditis. And so don't you think that there would be some sort of testing to look for that? Testing, not just clinical symptoms, testing. Don't you think? Yeah. And do you think that they checked for labs, EKG, echocardiogram testing? What did you say? Yeah. Right, exactly. Okay, the next point that I want to make about this is, do you think that there is any benefit? So this is the main argument that you will hear when vaccinating children, is at least what I have heard. Do you think that there's any benefit to society? Right. So what you have learned today tells you that vaccines do not prevent infection. They do not prevent transmission. So why? Why would we give this to an entire population that are not at risk for severe illness? Exactly. So if you were to have a conversation with your friends and family, do you feel like you can talk to them clearly? Do you feel like you can say to them the facts? Because that's where you need to be. You need to be at that point where you're ready to stand up for the truth. there is this fear about talking about what you know and saying what you've learned and being able to talk to your family about the catastrophe that is occurring in this country. So another thing that I would like to point out is that obviously, this is so obvious, there were no long-term safety data studies, correct? How could there be if we're doing it so early in the game? So there's a quote that I have read before, and I bet you guys have heard it. I'm going to read it, and if you haven't heard it, it will blow your mind. So the quote is from the committee member that was part of the committee to discuss presenting or sending this on to the FDA for emergency use approval. The committee member is Dr. Eric Rubin, who's a physician at Boston Brigham's and Women's Hospital, and he says, but we're never going to learn about how safe this vaccine is unless we start giving it. That's just the way it goes. So Dr. Cole discussed how we absolutely cannot vaccinate the children. We absolutely should not vaccinate the COVID recovered. Do you think that children that had had COVID infection were included in the studies for the Pfizer vaccines? No, they weren't. Why do you think that is? They don't want to know what it does, right? If we know that, and I do believe this has been discussed today, but I'm not positive, but if we know that those that have had COVID are more at risk for adverse events, do you think they would give it to the children that have had COVID? No. I mean, they don't want to know the bad outcome in their study, but they approved it for everyone. It's so mind-blowing. So in addition, Dr. Cole talked about the biodistribution. So I don't know, I've been trying to sit in most of the day to see so I don't duplicate things, but I hope everybody sort of grasps what the vaccine is. It's a genetic code that's a sequence. It's trying to tell you, that's going to tell your body to make the spike protein, and it's encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle. And that lipid nanoparticle is designed to go through most of your body, not like any other of the vaccines that we've had in the past. So biodistribution shows that it ends up in the ovaries, crosses the blood-brain barrier. I don't know how in the world that sounds good for kids. I don't know how in the world it sounds good for anybody. If we know that we don't have any long-term safety data on fertility, autoimmune diseases, cancer, and we now know that it doesn't just stay in the arm, then why would we do this to children? It's absolutely astonishing. And I feel like there's this psychosis that has occurred, and everybody is just hypnotized with fear, hypnotized with what the media is telling us. And so if we know that we are the protectors, then take that role seriously. As physicians, we're doing our job. We want to protect you guys. We want to protect society. And I don't know if you can tell, but the physicians that are here today care about you so much. They care about our country. They care about the world. They want to get the information out. And so we're empowering you as citizens and as parents to absolutely take that truth and hopefully make this day worth your while. And so that's what I got to you guys. You're welcome.